Good morning, zookeepers, and welcome back to Planet Zoo. Today I'm making an enclosure for the fallow deer, and the way I wanted to do it, have the house and enclosure a bit separate, like we did with the bongo, and have it so there is a bridge going over it. And my idea behind it, I was watching Prehistoric Park, so I was like, how they have the walkways and things, so I thought that'd be kind of cool to kind of incorporate into this build. So I'm going to do like a very simple kind of shed like I do for a lot of the deers that I've made. Well, I say lot, I say it was just one other deer that I've made an enclosure for so far. And we did a very simple shed like this to keep them in. And so like spending a while going around trying to figure out what type of windows I'd like in it. I was going to use these, and then I realised that they're not actually windows. I feel like I must have tricked myself into past thinking, oh, they're actual windows you can see through. Because on one of the builds, I think it was the build, I think it was a Mesa Zoo build, and I built the Jurassic World Evolution viewing tower, and I'm pretty sure it felt like you could see through those windows, but I must have been like mistaken myself. And I had a bit of an ordeal with the path trying to get it so that there wasn't any of the stands within the actual enclosure bit. I didn't want that, I wanted them either side, so in the end I sort of like gave up with that one. And then I was going to use this fence, as you can see me placing it down. I did leave it in there because I was like, I'll do this and I'll do nick the fencing on the outside of the bongo. But in the end, I actually just used the in-game fence. Like, I really like the mesh fence for that, so I was like, well, it's deer. A lot of places when I go to them just have like a very bog standard like mesh fence. So yeah, I went with that. So you'll see that in the end. I sort of like take all that out because obviously the fence bit itself was easy, but then the outside part of the fence, like to stop the people from getting into or close to the fence, the standoff barrier, that took a little bit longer. But right now in the house, as you can see, I'm in the house, in the shelter, kind of like shedish sort of building. I'm just making some ceiling supports. I had a little bit of difficulty because on this build, the axis for being able to move things, it didn't matter what I clicked, it never changed, it just stayed at a wonky angle. Kind of annoying for this build because it happened a few times, which was kind of frustrating and not very helpful, but we got there in the end. It might be slightly a little bit choppy because of that, but I don't want to battle it for ages. Like this like thing usually takes quite quickly to, you know, it's quicker to make, but with that little hold up, it was causing me a little bit of bother. But yeah, anyways, these little supports are also what I'll be attaching the lights to, so I just kept it nice and simple because obviously we're not going to be spending too much time in this house. I just felt like I'd do a little bit more than I usually would. Sometimes in these kind of buildings I would just sort of leave them as is. Other times I do kind of fully deck them out with staff areas, but with it just being a deer, I just thought, you know what, they'd probably just put a quick prefab for this kind of deer, and then just sort of have an area like this is good. There's like kind of like a fake shutting door. That's why I make the metal a different colour, because you can just imagine it's just kind of rolled up there and then slides down to kind of close that area off. And as well at the end into the enclosure there is also a gate that you can close off. Now the trees, these dudes do like eat bark and things like this, so we wanted to keep our trees nice and safe. So I make myself these little I don't know what you call it, tree guards. I made them quite hilariously big, to be honest, mainly because I want to add like ferns and things, and also have it as like a little bit of a garden area that they can't go and eat those plants. And it just feels like really nice. And when I was done with this, I was looking at it and I was like, I could have easily used this as like the fence to go all the way around, but then I definitely would have run out of time. Anyways, once I made one, I just copied and pasted it all the way around. I did move certain bits around a little bit, like the ground had pushed certain areas up and it's sort of worn down a bit. Also I had a fresh coat of paint, but it's still kind of a little choppy, and I quite like that sort of look because some are straight, some are at slightish angles, and I really enjoyed making it. It's probably what I'm going to now use for whenever, or in this particular zoo anyways. It's not really a zoo as such, it kind of is, because I'm kind of trying to keep some things a similar theme, but it is just mainly it is just mainly me just making first time enclosures that for animals I haven't made enclosures for, or if people have asked me they want to see a certain animal enclosure be made, then I'll probably add that into here even if it's not my first time making it. But it's primarily just enclosures for like first time builds, and there is still a few animals I haven't made enclosures for because there is still a few DLCs I don't have for Planet Zoo. So eventually when I get those I will probably make enclosures for them. I really want the tundra one now, just so kind of a polar bear, and I want, because obviously it's quite a tropical island, I really want to make like a polar bear house. But going back to the build right now, I'm using bramble. I placed down like loads of rocks, and with the bramble I'm trying to trail it out because I know in my area bramble just trails. It's like a trailing plant in a sense, and you'll see these big brushes, and then on around it, if it's been chopped down, undug up, it has like loads of other like little brambles trailing from it. So I kind of did that throughout the rock work. Added loads of different like plants and bushes, ones that the deer mainly liked, and I added a few flowers just to like make it pretty. Like I love foxgloves, so I had to add a few of those. And then they don't like buffalo grass, but I do end up adding the buffalo grass all the way around as well, just so that is the smaller and lower grass to this kind of like structure area. And I do love doing this technique. This is a technique I learned off Caesar, watching one of his videos on how to make a realistic enclosure. Before, I never actually used rock as a base. I just kind of did it with just normal plants as is. So I just decided to start doing rocks after watching that video, and I quite like the look of using the folks rocks as kind of like a base before adding all the plants to it. Just add something a little bit extra to it, which I quite like. And yeah. Anyways, on the bridge, I wanted like a sort of like a roof kind of. I'm trying to think of the name of what they're called now. Are they terrace, or something like that? Man, I don't know. But yeah, I wanted a kind of like slight covering for the roof, and then have like these sides of I think it's from the African pack, I've already forgotten the name of them, but it's kind of like a peephole thing. Kind of makes it less daunting for the deer, especially when they're going underneath it and having humans above them, because it's kind of like almost like it's almost covered, but you can still see through it quite easily, and probably makes it less daunting for the deer. And it's a bit of a feature really, rather than just having the path there dangling over. I came across the log, I was like, yeah, I like that log, I'm putting that in the enclosure. And then went back to the bridge. We tried getting like a different wood colour that wasn't too different, but wasn't too similar, and then I was trying to decide really how I wanted it. In the end, I decided to have it so it wasn't sticking out on the edges, it was just on the inside, and we just had to do a little bit of work here and there to make it look nice. And then I went around placing a load of information signs, letting everyone know what's in this enclosure, and then I kind of left out of that. Again, I probably might come back to it, I might add more details to it, or I might just, when I make a second enclosure, compare the differences between what I've built for the first time and what I've built the next time, kind of thing. You know, it's nice to be able to go back and forth and compare my first enclosure to the second time making an enclosure for that animal. But nevertheless, I really enjoyed making this. This is quite fun. I went around with the terrain grass bush as well, but the short one, just greening up slight areas around the actual plant area, so it kind of like builds up in a sense, because that kind of building block feel. I did keep this enclosure flat and really large, even though there's only so little deer in it, mainly because I wanted that sparseness. I always feel like when you come across deer, you don't come across many in a group unless it's a huge herd, but like sometimes you'll just come across the one, so I kind of like that feeling that it's quite sparse. But anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this and it's giving you some inspiration with your build. I know this was a pretty, on the scale of things, quite a nice simple little enclosure that I think it took an hour to make, I think. But anyways, thank you for watching. Until next time, I'll see you later.